As exciting as movie trailers can be, it's important to never lose sight of the fact that they're part of a studio's marketing cycle above all else. At the end of the day, they're designed to get your butt into the cinema by any means necessary, and sometimes they arguably overstep their bounds by flat out presenting a different experience than what paying customers expected. But this doesn't mean that the film is bad or disappointing, but it does mean in each case the end result was a far cry from the movie that was initially sold. With entire shots, scenes, and potentially iconic moments reworked or even removed entirely, each film turned out distinctly different from the narrative style and/or tone presented in the marketing. With that in mind, I'm Will for Whatculture, and here are 10 movies that changed hugely from the trailers. Number 10, Suicide Squad. You only need to compare the rapturous response to Suicide Squad's trailers to how coldly the final film was received to appreciate how drastically David Ayer's ensemble comic book flick was tinkered with during post-production. The initial marketing push implied Suicide Squad to be a gritty, men-on-a-mission movie, boasting a level of edgy attitude that seemed to suit the characters, contrasted from the inappropriately downbeat tone of Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. The first trailer also played up the presence of Jared Leto's insidiously playful Joker. After the response to Batman v Superman, however, Warner Brothers decided to change the tone of the movie's marketing, even while they were still unsure of quite what tone they wanted the movie itself to have. Consequently, later trailers implied a lighter affair more in the vein of Guardians of the Galaxy, with an emphasis on witty one-liners and liberal use of pop music. Moreover, for fear of the backlash against Leto's performance, the Joker ended up being relegated to an extended cameo, with most of his trailer scenes being cut entirely. Number 9, The Predator. It's fair to say that the trailers for The Predator were, well, all over the place. But what's especially baffling about the trailers is that they featured footage from the movie's third act, which was already due to be replaced by reshoots. The Predator's first trailer didn't drop until last May, over a month after reshoots had been completed, where Black had reportedly reshot the overwhelming majority of the film's finale in order to switch it from day to night, among other things. Even in the weeks leading up to the movie's release, trailers and TV spots still featured clips from the aborted finale, confirming a production that clearly ran fully off the rails. Unsurprisingly, both critics and fans were scathing in their response to the film. Number 8, Slender Man. Last summer's Slender Man was hardly anticipated by a great many moviegoers, but even so, it's puzzling just how little the released movie resembles what the original trailer promised. The first trailer featured several prominent character deaths, including a teenage boy jumping from a roof and a girl stabbing herself in the face with a scalpel, neither of which made the final cut. It later emerged that the producers became embattled with Sony over the edit of the movie, with the studio fearing a backlash given the film's proximity to the infamous Slender Man stabbing and trial, which was concluded mere months before the movie was due to release. As such, most of the grisly death scenes featured in the trailers were cut, resulting in these characters awkwardly disappearing from the movie without much explanation. Number 7, All the Money in the World. All the Money in the World is a rare case where a movie drifted from its original trailers not because the movie wasn't working or the studio actively wanted to mislead audiences, but because of an unfortunate real-life issue. Ridley Scott's biographical crime thriller was originally shot from May through to August of 2017, yet disaster struck when numerous sexual assault allegations were leveled against star Kevin Spacey that October. Scott, adamant that the controversy shouldn't damage the film itself, quickly opted to recast Spacey's role through reshoots, hiring Christopher Plummer, who was his original choice, to play miser J. Paul Getty. Merely 5 weeks before the film hit cinemas, Scott undertook 10 days of reshoots to replace Spacey with Plummer, rendering the Spacey-heavy prior trailers null and void. As it turned out, the movie was well received by critics and audiences, even if it ultimately tanked at the box office. Number 6, Spider-Man. It perhaps shouldn't be terribly surprising that a movie as groundbreaking as Sam Raimi's Spider-Man went through many iterations even while deep into production. The film's first teaser trailer infamously saw the web slinger battling a gang of robbers who, while escaping in a helicopter, ended up webbed between the World Trade Center's Twin Towers. In a spectacular feat of bad luck for Sony, the 9/11 attacks took place just a week after the trailer dropped, prompting the studio to pull the teaser and also remove the sequence from the final movie. Sony has since stated that the scene was only ever intended to function as promotional material and not appear in the film itself. Yet for those who saw the trailer before it was pulled, there was no reason not to believe it would be Spidey's introductory scene in the movie. Number 5. Star Trek Beyond. The curious gulf between Star Trek Beyond's much loathed first trailer and the final movie isn't so much a result of the film being excessively tinkered with in post-production as it is Paramount opting to market the film in the most cynical way possible. The first trailer played up a lighter-than-air tone where ludicrous set pieces would take pride and place over the thoughtful philosophy the franchise is known for. Paramount were likely feeling the pressure to play up the schlocky action and slick one-liners after the previous film, Star Trek Into Darkness, performed milder than expected at the box office. Basically, it felt like an attempt to cash in on the success of goofball space opera Guardians of the Galaxy. Writer Simon Pegg even criticized the trailer both before and after the movie's release, insisting that it wasn't reflective of the film's actual tone, and that it effectively spoiled the callback to Sabotage, which is cleverly employed in the film's climactic set piece. Indeed, the final film was quite tonally distinct from this trailer, with Star Trek Beyond ultimately turning out a surprisingly emotional and character-driven homage to the original TV series. Number 4. Where the Wild Things Are. The trailers for the film adaptation of this beloved children's book suggested a whimsical, feel-good movie about a young boy heading off on a wondrous adventure with a group of majestic creatures. And this couldn't be much further from the truth. 3.5 years passed between the film started shooting and the final film hitting cinemas. Rumors also circulated that test screenings were scaring children, and it was felt that the studio wanted to broaden the film for more mainstream audiences. Yet ultimately, despite Warner Brothers striving for a film reflective of that first teaser trailer, the final result is surprisingly downbeat and depressing and a very far cry from the original marketing. Number 3. Justice League. The fact that there are literally dozens of articles online detailing all the trailer footage missing from Justice League's final cut is proof of just how aggressively the superhero tentpole was fiddled with in post-production. Between huge chunks of the film being reshot after Joss Whedon came aboard to take over from Zack Snyder, and Warner Brothers top brass mandating that the film run no longer than 2 hours, major sequences featured in the trailers were either significantly altered or erased altogether. After Whedon took over the reins, the film's color palette was given a significant regrading, with Snyder's penchant for drab, dark greys and blacks switched out for a brighter red hue, especially during the film's CGI-filled third act. Even if you never watched a single trailer for the movie, it's painfully obvious that it was hacked to shreds in post-production, as the character development and plot both feel bewilderingly rushed. Number 2. Gangster Squad. Ruben Fleischer's largely forgotten 2013 crime thriller nevertheless presented a solid first impression, with its glossy, star-studded trailers promising fast-talking gangsters, sexy femme fatales, and a wealth of brutal action. The May 2012 trailer prominently featured a set piece where gangsters fired machine guns through a cinema screen, which became a major point of contention 2 months later following the Aurora, Colorado cinema shootings. Because the pivotal nature of the scene meant that it couldn't be removed without compromising the third act, Warner Brothers opted to reshoot the shootout in a new Chinatown setting. Though the bulk of the film remains fully intact from the early marketing, it's fair to say that the new set piece ultimately fell short of the visual pep teased by that original cinema shootout. Number 1. Rogue One, a Star Wars story. On paper, Rogue One certainly sounded like the ideal Star Wars prequel, revolving around a band of down and outers teaming up to steal the plans to the Death Star. And principal photography seemed to go off without a hitch, leading to the release of the first trailer a few months later in April 2016. But not long afterwards, reports emerged that Lucasfilm wasn't happy with director Gareth Edwards' job, and drafted in Tony Gilroy to both rewrite aspects of the script and direct almost 2 months worth of reshoots. Initial reports suggested that as much as 40% of the film had to be redone, while more recent estimates put that figure closer to roughly 1/3. By comparing the earlier trailers to the final film, it's clear that the alterations were pervasive throughout, with almost 20 shots, lines of dialogue, and even entire scenes absent from the theatrical release.